Hey there, saltwater anglers, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, your local report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. This podcast is part of the Great Days Outdoors Network, and each week we'll be talking to local experts to learn ways that we can become better anglers and stewards of this fishery, whether you're out fishing in the ocean, the lower bay, or its tributaries. We also ask that every angler do their part in sustainable fishing practices, keeping this amazing fishery healthy and thriving for generations to come. Spring is here, and the water in the bite is warming up. So let's take a minute and hear who's bringing us this week's show, and then we're going to jump into the report and find out what's going on. Check it out. AFTCO has a gift for our listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. For cool mornings, I love my Reaper sweatshirt. And on those hot days, my Samurai sun shirt. You just can't beat the quality and performance. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, you guys, welcome to this week's show. Obviously, it's almost June 20th here. Cobia season's officially kicked off. It wasn't exactly the greatest first day. Super overcast. A few guys were able to get out there and snag a couple keepers. But I'm excited to bring back to the show Captain Robbie with Real Release Sport Fishing and catch up with him about what he's been seeing and doing the last couple of days. Captain Robbie just got off a charter, just docked up back at the marina. How are we doing this evening?
Tired, very tired. The summer is here, and we're running every day.
Yeah, you look freshly sunburnt, a little bit of residual sunscreen hanging out, and we'll catch us up. So, opening day was Sunday, but before we get into opening day of Cobia, was it Saturday you guys went out and did an inshore rec trip or a nearshore rec trip?
Yeah, I had a good group of guys from Jersey that came down. I was telling them about the flounder fishing that we have here on some inshore wrecks, and and then inside the bay, and how the flounder fishing this year has probably been the best I've seen in probably 5 or 6 years. I mean, it's been phenomenal flounder fishing this whole entire season so far. It's pretty early for them too.
In your opinion, I mean, obviously we watch, the Gulf Stream move up every year, and that has a lot to do with the tunas and when they're going to show up. But, a flounder bite changing year over year, if you had to, throw a dart at a wall and pick a reason that it changes year over year, what would you guess is the reason?
Cycle, fish cycle.
Fish cycle?
Like a 10 or 12 year cycle, I think.
Okay. And
That's
is
what I
that
would go with, just because of the progression that we've seen. It's gotten, it's got, like, last year was really good in the bay in July for flounder fishing, and that's been a very long time since we've seen it like that.
yeah.
And then for the most part, like, a lot of it's on the inshore wrecks or offshore wrecks and everything like that the past couple of years. But it's getting to be what it used to be like, flounder fishing in the bay. And I just feel like it's a cycle. I don't think anything else really has changed that much.
Mm-hmm.
I just think just that class of fish is, moved back. Because if you look at it, like the guys up in Montauk and everything like that was really good for like the past 4 years, and that's died off now. And I just feel like maybe those fish, just kind of work their way up the coast, do one big loop, and then come right back.
So kind of like a biomass, like we've talked about in the past with like trout and whatnot, where it's like there's obviously like the spawning and the, the normal, regrowth of the population, so to speak. But do you think there's certain biomasses that just kind of move around and we're just kind of in that fortunate cycle right now where there's just a large biomass in our area?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, that the bay was colder this year than normal. I mean, you don't really know, because, like, it stayed pretty cold, or like normal what it used to be, and then it spiked up really hard, and then it dropped back down again. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, because usually, like, you were fishing and it was like the ocean was 64 degrees in May.
Yeah.
It's usually never, or 62 sometimes.
Right.
And it never was like that. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And like those fish that was like the temperature they really want to be able to shove in or something like that. And they were off the coast and just followed that, cold water in. Because, like normally May it's 70 degrees, 72.
Right.
that time of year. And the same thing like the drum, the drum were late showing up. They're just now, showing up this year.
Yeah.
I just think maybe that has something to do with it.
It sounds like it. I mean, and if I had to take my pick between an opportunity to catch a flounder or, drum, I think I would take flounder every day of the week over drum just because they're delicious. And you have to really kind of work for them. That bite is not easy. Whereas drum or, they'll eat a water bottle.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
You catch one drum, you caught them all.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys fish the nearshore wrecks, any particular areas? Like if I'm going to go out there and look around, do you have a recommendation for what type of wreck I should look at for a flounder versus sea bass, or is it typically kind of like one and the same?
So like usually the end of May, like years and years before how it's been is like the end of May, and how it was this year was really good in the bay. So
Hmm.
what the flounders do, they move in to the bay and inside Lynnhaven. That's where you'll first see them. They'll show up on the eastern shore, Wise Point, and then like a month or 2 to 3 weeks later, depending on the water temperature, you'll catch them over at Rudy Inlet. And that's the first massive ocean fish moving in. And then you'll start seeing guys catching them inside Lynnhaven and at the end of May or middle of May, and then at the end of May, usually it's really good around the bridge tunnel from the first island all the way to the high rise. Um, and then usually what I always say is like the first week of June's really good for like those near shore wrecks,
Mm.
like Light Tower to Cape Henry wreck. Inside 8 miles, 6 miles. I mean, inside the bay, we fish wrecks right at the mouth of the bay too. Um, and then you'll get a big push in July and August when those fish are moving back out to the deeper water, and that's when they'll show up at the triangles and all those other offshore wrecks.
Very cool. And I mean, I've been looking at some of your pictures that you've posted and some others. I mean, these aren't a small class of flounder. I mean, what would you say is the average size you're seeing, and what are some of the bigger fish that you're seeing?
So the average size that we've been catching consistently, I'd say like your consistent size is going to be like 20 to 22 inches.
Mm.
Um, and then you'll have a lot. We've had a lot of 25-inch fish this year. But so far our biggest one, that's what we caught the other day, was 30 inches.
Good
I mean,
Lord. 30-inch
giant.
flounder. What did
Yeah,
she
and
go
then we
about 6 or 7 pounds?
7 pounds. That's the only issue with the fish on the wrecks because they're migrating and moving, so they're not feeding. They're constantly just, and that's what happens is like they'll be all over those wrecks, but they won't eat because they're pushing inshore, and then usually when they get closer to the bay, that's when they'll try to nourishment and
Yeah.
fuel up again to do one last push into the bay to go spawn.
Yeah. Man. 30-inch flounder. I mean,
Oh,
fed or unfed.
I haven't seen one of those in a very 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 long time.
Yeah, and
Very
you've
long
talked
time.
about it. You've talked about it on the show before, but remind our listeners, like if you're flounder fishing, whether you're using, like a dropper loop rig like you would for sea bass, or jig, um, with flounder, that bite is so different and the way you fight them up to the boat is a little bit different. Remind us like some of those top two or three tips and tricks to get the bite and get hooked up and then to keep them on all the way up into the net.
Okay. Oh, sorry, took a sip. I'd say it all depends on like what you're fishing. So like if you're in the bay and you really want to fight like a big fish or something like that, and you're using live bait like a live spot or a croaker, like you're using a live spot or a croaker,
Hmm.
you're gonna go and I mean the number one rule with what they said was you're gonna wait for that thump, and they said light a cigarette, smoke the cigarette, and then set the hook.
So be patient.
Classic one very patiently because you're fishing bigger baits. Um, that's why a lot of the fishing that I do is mostly jigging or those or the dropper loop rigs. That's what we use a lot to do, especially for our clients. People that have never flounder fished before. It's just we lose less gear doing that.
Hmm.
Just it's not directly on the bottom. Um,
Right.
and I mean they catch fish just as well too. It's just I like fishing, lightweight jigs. It's just more, hands on or finesse fishing if you want to call it that. Um, but it's constantly you got to be constantly jigging. always moving the bait as soon as it hits bottom. And I'm not saying like big pulls like you do for your sea bass, just like little taps on the bottom,
Mm.
just to make sure it's still there, and just keep the bait moving. And then when you get the bite, it's mostly just going to be tension. And you got to watch your rod tip. And as soon as you go to lift up to do your jig again, it'll just be heavy. And then you'll usually feel like a swat or like a tug on it, a tug
Mm-hmm.
back down to the bottom. And that's how
Yeah.
you're really going to know if it's a sea bass, a flounder. The sea bass are mostly going to be pep, 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 pep,
Right. Right.
tapping it nonstop, where a toadfish is just going to one big swing at it and then start swimming with it or pull it back down to the bottom. Those flounders are just going to hold on to it, and you'll feel them. As long as you leave tension on it, you'll feel them work their way up. They'll grab it,
Okay.
and then you'll feel boom, boom. It's just getting heavier because they're moving up the line. I give it like 5 or 6 seconds, and then you want to set the hook on it, and then you don't want to fight it crazy. You don't want to fight it hard. Just you don't want to even lift up and reel down. Just steady tension. Leave the rod tip up and at eye level, and just a steady crank.
Got it. Because they like to shake. They like to shake their heads a lot.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
if you're going in there and doing all this movement, trying to get them up fast and all that stuff, that weight's gonna pull off and be moving up and down, and that's what's going to de-hook your fish.
Got it. Okay. Good to know. That's a great tip. I tried to go flounder fishing the other day, and the 1 or 2 bites, I think they were actually sea bass, but as soon as I felt the bites, I was being so impatient and just swinging immediately. And it's just a good reminder that with flounder fishing, you have to be very present and focused to not just yank it as soon as you feel that bite, to actually wait those 5 or 6 seconds to smoke that virtual cigarette while you wait to actually get some tension on it. So that was Saturday, and then Sunday, opening day of Cobia. The weather conditions were I mean, how would you describe the weather on Sunday for an opening day of Cobia fishing?
Miserable. That's about the classic words that you could call it on that. It's just miserable. Rainy, overcast, very cloudy, not rough. I would say there's a lot of glare.
Yeah.
And just very, very tough conditions.
So how do you
anything out there?
how do you even begin to sight fish for a cobia when the conditions are like that? I mean, that's like the worst possible sight fishing conditions ever. I mean, you guys caught. I think you were one of the few boats that I saw that caught on Sunday. How do you even begin to sight fish in those conditions?
You just go to your old reliable spots where you always see fish and just work it very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Just work it very slow and just stay very visual. That's the only thing.
Keep your head on a swivel.
You just kind of relax a little bit, because I feel like the harder you stare at it, the worse it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we went with on Sunday, was just to take it easy. And if it happens, it happens.
Well, it obviously happened. So tell us, I mean, you guys caught 2 really big fish, especially for our area as of the last couple of years. Talk us through those bites. How did you guys manage to squeeze that out despite the conditions? I mean, it was really cool to watch.
Lots of luck. That's what I call it, lots of luck. But
Yeah.
it was one of my buddies said that he's seen 2 or 3 fish, and he wanted us to go over there and help him start looking for them. So we were mackerel fishing, pulled up the mackerel rods, passed each other, and then looked to the left of the boat, and then there was just that 55-incher just laying right there next to the boat, probably 30, 40 feet away, about 2 foot down too. And then got the bucktail out, fish went to soak down, was able to make a cast, did a jig on where it was, and then just saw it flash on it down deep, and then ended up fighting the fish for 32 minutes because it ended up getting hooked on the side of the face, but we ended up getting it in.
Hold on a second. So you're telling me that a 50+ inch fish ate a bucktail on June 15th inside of the Chesapeake Bay? I mean, I find that hard to believe.
Stop it. You already know I don't even have a live well on my boat.
I'm just messing. It is cool to hear. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've seen a fish that big eat a bucktail. So it's exciting whenever, I mean, catching a fish on a live bait is fun, but there is something special about when they react to that artificial and you feel that bite. I mean, it's just such a rush in that moment. 32 minutes. I mean, your charter guest must have been
He was,
exhausted.
he was exhausted, but that's what they come for. That's what I tell them. Enjoy it. This is what you want.
Yeah,
You
man.
don't really want to fight that fish that comes. I mean, it's no fun. That's the whole
Mm-mm.
point of the chase is getting that fight.
Yeah,
Um,
32 minutes of it. How long into the fight till you realized it was hooked in the cheek?
First time it came up, probably 10 minutes into it. The way it was fighting out, it almost spooled us. And usually
Oh,
that's like a tell sign,
right.
that it's hooked funny, or usually they get hooked like underneath their belly in between their little fins right there.
Hmm.
If they go to swipe at it or something like that. But he was hooked like, I mean, like 2 inches away from his mouth, like right in his gill plate.
Hmm. So he definitely tried to eat it, and then
Oh,
obviously in the
yeah.
swipe process. I mean, I've had them where they swipe at it and then get randomly caught in the tail, which feels like a 1 out of 1,000 bad luck because then you're locked in for an unknown amount of time. But how big did that fish end up going?
That was a 57 pounder.
Whew,
It was a
man,
pretty good fish. It was pretty good. And then while we were
citation.
fighting that one, we actually had in the video you can see there's probably like another 50 incher with it that
Yeah,
ended
that
up
showed
like
up.
it was like 15 minutes into the fight it showed up. It wasn't there with
Wow,
the fish before, just kind of like randomly showed up.
man.
That's something else that kind of screwed up the fishing. I think the past couple of days is all that rain that we've had. It's pushed all that fresh water in, changed the salinity levels, and just caused the
Hmm.
fish just to sit a little bit lower. Like that one, I mean, that fish was 3 foot below the surface when I saw it. I mean, you could barely make it out. Um, and that's what a lot of people I talked to when they were seeing fish that day. They were coming up, going back down. And normally that's what happens when it rains a lot. All that fresh water comes out of the rivers, and
Yeah.
they want to go up, but then they come right back down. I don't know if it's a water temperature thing or the salinity levels or anything like that.
It's a good question to ask. I'm actually pulling up my Hilton's real-time navigator right now to look at the salinity, just to kind of get a feel for, what was going on there because I'm a believer in that. I think every time we see it rain really hard and we watch the sea surface or the salinity on the surface go down, I feel like we do see the action or them swimming on the surface decrease dramatically as well too. I wish I could interpret the salinity levels better, but yeah, we'd have to go back and actually spend some time and look at that day in history and and then compare it because I'll bet when we see days where there's a lot of fish up top versus days shortly after rain where there isn't, we can probably draw a conclusion about the salinity levels. Um, and then in terms of the water temperatures, did you see anything remarkable, or is it about what you'd expect for this time of the year?
So that was our first time cobia fishing really in the bay. We've just been mostly doing wreck fishing and inshore fishing like that. I will say like that. I talked to everyone else that was out there that had been fishing previously, and I think they said the water temperature was like 76.
Hmm.
But then that day it actually dropped to like 73. So it wasn't like a crazy drop or anything. But I know later in the day it did get to like 71,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is kind of a pretty big drop. And I know my buddy up the bay talked to him, and he went from like 80-degree water already, like way up there, and it would drop to like 77. So I
Hmm.
mean, like a 3-degree drop, which isn't anything drastic. Uh,
Yeah.
that would change that. That's why I think it's more to the salinity and everything. But definitely, like in August or July, on those hot days where the water's 80, and all of a sudden you get that cold shower that moves in that just lays that layer on there. I think that'll affect them.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking at the PSU, which is I guess, the metric that they measure salinity in. And you can definitely see that, like, just south of Cape Henry, the PSU gets really low, like very low salinity. So that kind of makes sense that if, Saturday and Sunday we had all that rain and then the outgoing tides is starting to move that water out of here. It's looking like it's a little south of us now and some saltier water might be moving, back in over the next couple of sunny days. We got some hot days ahead of us too. So hopefully you guys see some good cobia fishing, especially
Yeah,
as that.
I heard they had a good showing today.
Okay.
Or I mean, better than what it has been. I mean, not like we did anything crazy. I mean, I think I seen 5 cobies all day that day, and we caught three. We caught three.
Got it.
Um, so I mean, wasn't like it was anything phenomenal. Not like how it normally should be 20, 30 fish days, day
Right.
three, and then you catch 10 or something. But
Hmm.
I haven't seen that really all year, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's a lot to do with the weather. I mean, we've had it was like I told you, it was really, really cold, and then it got really, really warm. The fish shoved in, and then it got really, really cold again.
yeah, just
And
kind of
it's
shut them down
caused those
again.
fish to go down to the bottom or go way up the rivers.
Hmm.
And I think that's what the issue is that everyone's seeing now. They're, a lot of people are saying they're not eating, they're not doing, they're all balled up. They're seeing pods of fish. They're spawning earlier, is all it is. Usually we see that in July, and it seems more like it's happening right now.
Happen a little early. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, for our listeners who maybe have not gotten to hear your voice before, or aren't familiar yet with Real Release, I mean, you've been chartering, but how long have you been fishing for cobia?
my first time Cobia fishing was 2008.
2008. Okay, so that's that's a long time. That's that's like what, 17 years? And you're only 24 years old. So I mean, that's basically your whole life. I'm kidding. What are you now? 30? 31?
Be 31 next month. Yeah.
31 next month.
Yeah, I think I was 15 the first time, 15 or 14 the first time I went Cobia fishing.
So you've spent thousands of hours cobia fishing, which is more than the average bear. And when you've seen these fish that they don't want to eat, I mean, is there really much of anything? Like if a fish doesn't want to eat, it just doesn't want to eat, right? There's nothing you can really do to force them to eat.
No, but I'll say that that's more of a newer trend, not
Hmm.
really like an older trend. We never really used to see that back in the day,
Would you
ever.
attribute that to boat pressure?
I
Then
attribute it to, oh, how do I say this nicely?
are
I
they learning
attribute
what
it,
are they learning what eels look like?
no, I attribute it to people that want to catch 30 fish a day. And then, if you're catching 30 fish a day, you're probably pulling off five or six. So that's 35 fish. And then you go out there the next day, they're not going to eat. You know what I mean? They're going to be
Hmm.
in the same spot. They're going to see each other, and they're just not going to eat just because, they've been stung.
Hmm. Yeah, and saying they've been stung, that's a good way of putting it. Fish are, animals, but animals have the ability to learn. And if those fish have gotten stung, like you said, a time or two, they might get wise. And I think it's you or somebody else I've heard say before, a fish didn't get to be 60 pounds because they're dumb.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the, well, I mean, I don't even think it's that, to be honest with you. I really don't. I think it's a lot of, because I mean, if that was the case, you wouldn't catch 50 pounders on bucktails, you know?
True. True.
I think it's a lot to do with just the pressuring of people. There's a lot of people doing it now compared to years past. I mean, when I would go out there and do it, there would be four of us all day.
Right.
It was the main core of four or five guys that did this. No one else did it.
Hmm.
And then it's just, I mean, you've seen it, it's just grown and grown and grown throughout the years because it's so, we popularized it a lot more with social media than what it was.
Right.
Um, and I think that a lot of it has to do with just so many people are going. A lot of people don't really know exactly, like, I would say, like, proper way or like how to fish for them. So,
Hmm.
I think like a lot of those people are running fish over. Now they're causing those fish to go down. You're not seeing those same
Right.
fish anymore. Or those guys are throwing at a fish, and it could be their first time. Like, I get it, everyone's got to learn, but not saying that, but I'm just saying it's a lot of people fishing,
Hmm.
and like they throw at a fish just like, I mean, everyone does. I still do it, and you miss the bite, but you sting it, and the fish is sitting there, spitting and doing all that stuff, and then an hour goes by, and I could see that fish and throw on it, and then it doesn't eat. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think it's a lot to do with that because they don't really move a lot. Once they hit the bay, once they get on the other side of the tunnel, they don't really move that much. That's just
Right.
kind of what people don't really realize. I'm not saying that they're not moving, but they're good. Like if you see them behind the third and fourth island, they'll probably be there for a couple of days. And it's in
Right.
the same fish that you see that you hook, because I've seen the same fish. It would be a scar or mark on their back, and like I'll see that fish a day or two later within the same area, within 2 or 3 miles of that same spot.
Hmm.
And I think it's a lot of that. So if you got guys going in there, on a banner day, there could be 60 to 100 boats fishing, and then say, 100 cobia get caught and released. And then you go back there the next day, there's still going to be that 100 fish in that area that they're just not going to eat. It's like
Right.
the guys that go bass fishing. They don't, they don't really go pre-fishing the day before the tournament, because then the fish that they could win, and then that fish. That's what I see is a big trend. Is like it'll be really really good on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then everyone floods it out there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then
shuts it down.
And then it'll be slow, or not slow, but you'll see a lot more fish that won't eat Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll see that same thing Tuesday, and then by Wednesday, Thursday it gets better, but then everyone posts everything, and then it floods it again. And it's the same thing happens. It's just like a double-edged sword. I get it. Everybody wants to go out there and catch them, but I think that's just the majority of it is. It's not thousands and thousands of these fish out there, so you're essentially fishing the same fish.
Right. And there could be a lot more, but it's, I would guess.
There's a ton. There's a ton of fish.
But only a small percentage come up.
Correct. The majority of fish that you're seeing on the surface, come up. And it's like you've seen it. Like if you mess up on a throw with a fish and it follows it to the boat and it chases it and then you miss it, and then you go to throw it again, it's like, no. But then you don't know if that, if that happened in 30 minutes before you got there because everyone's all grouped together.
Yeah. Do you ever worry that those fish will see the camo of your wrap and recognize your boat and like run?
No. A lot of the fish, the 53 pounder that we caught actually was it ate underneath the boat.
Interesting. Now, did that one eat a bucktail as well?
That's all I got.
Oh wow. Man,
that's all I try to fish with.
53 pounder and 57 pounder in the same day, especially on opening day in tough conditions, is not an easy feat, and definitely, I think you said there's some luck involved, but I like to think that success.
I think a lot of it is luck on running into the fish that eats. Now the skill part is being able to see them and have like muscle memory or reaction time to be able to react to the fish and be able to make like a good cast or display the jig properly and try to read the fish on what you think it's going to do. So like
I think the part that a lot of us recreational anglers miss. We kind of are a little bit too in the moment, and the cast comes off a little sloppy just in the general direction of the fish and not like laser focused in a specific spot.
It's like a whiskey throttle.
Yeah.
You just get really excited, and we just kind of get used to it after seeing these fish, year after year after year, and it does make you a little bit better, I guess, on like just being able to stay calm or like in the pocket or whatever they want to say, because like that fish, we caught it on the way. I was on plane running in. It soaked up 50, 60 feet in front of us, turned the boat, then a hard right turn, ripped it out of gear, grabbed my bucktail, and just dropped it. Well, I remember my customers, they said they didn't know what was going on. They just saw a bucktail drop from the window right next to them.
And the next thing you know, they see a rod coming down tight.
Yeah, I dropped it down. The fish was gone. It was already down. I dropped it, 10 seconds, did one jig, and then it piled on it. And it ate, and it was completely underneath the boat. And I don't know how we were able to get it handed down and to the other side of the boat without breaking it off in the wheel, but we were able to land that. And that's where the luck comes in.
And one of the benefits of your boat, that privateer not having outboards to wiggle around, you're able to maneuver that line around the back of the boat much more easily than if you've got outboards to deal with. We just finished.
That's the worst though, is like because the fish go underneath. Like that fish ate and went underneath the boat on the other side, so it was all over in my running gear. That's the worst thing, because you got to think the prop's right underneath there. That's what happened to me last year. I had to dive in and cut the line, and then Nathan jumped in, he cut the line and then retied it, and we actually landed the fish. It was wrapped up in my wheel.
Come on
the other side of the boat, yeah. And then I spent like an hour cutting braid out of my
But y'all got the fish?
While we landed the fish, yeah.
That's incredible.
He cut the line, he handed it up to me, I held on to it, tied a knot, and then we landed the fish.
Goodness gracious. How big was that fish?
47 inches.
So that's not a lightweight by any stretch of imagination. Whether you're hitting the sand with set rigs using the traditional scent strips for pompano, or fishing the flats or marshes for speckled trout, redfish, and flounder, Fish Bites has something for you. They're family owned and operated in St. Augustine, Florida, and pride themselves on making reliably consistent fishing products for anglers of all ages around the world. Fish Bites bait and lures are made with pride in the Sunshine State, USA. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits at fishbites.com. Upgrade your waterfront with Killer Doc's premium dock furniture, built to last a lifetime in marine conditions. Crafted from marine-grade aluminum with a protective anti-corrosion coating, it's tough enough to handle the elements while providing unmatched comfort. Featuring sunbrella cushions with fast-drying, removable covers, our furniture stays securely in place even in storms. Choose from cabanas, club chairs, love seats, tables, and more to create your perfect dockside retreat. Durability meets elegance at Killer Doc. Check out the full collection at killerdoc.com today. But back to what you were saying, we just finished this week was the U.S. Open on the PGA Tour, and the stakes are high, and standing over like a 4 foot putt can be treacherous to the average amateur golfer when you have to make a 4 foot putt. But for a PGA professional, it's just muscle memory. So like you're saying, for you those 4 foot putts, making that accurate cast is almost like thoughtless because you've done it so many times. But that is the difference for us, recreational anglers, that we miss a lot because we might be landing it close, but we're not landing it in that, ideal zone that's going to actually engage them to want to strike. It's going to maybe spook them or look unnatural or whatever. As we go into Cobia season 2025, new regulations, 43-inch minimum. Any thoughts or recommendations for us recreational anglers as we go out and have our fun?
That's a tough one.
I know.
That is a tough one.
I know it is.
You're putting me on the spot just because I just did it too.
Well, it's a sensitive topic, but it's also a topic that we have to
you were there
discuss
with me. You were there with me and Zach when we talked to them about it. And we told them.
at the meeting. Yeah.
Yep. That I mean, I will say this I mean, I guess this is where, it gets into the sticky situation where I say that it shouldn't be the same because I'm a charter, with somebody that's coming down once a year, you know what I mean? They come land these fish and, we have it year round, like recreational guys have it year round where they can go out every weekend. I mean, we see the same boats out there every Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
Try, I guess, I mean, I would say it's completely up to you guys, but I mean, I would say try to release a fish over 55 inches or, I mean, if it's your biggest fish ever, go for it. If it makes you happy, kill it. You're perfectly legal to it, but I do see it being the downfall of this fishery. Just because of what they've done to the regulations already and what we've seen them do in years past, and especially with rockfish. And that's kind of what we brought up to them, was that they are going to see all these big fish killed. Because what did the girl say? She said, not many people catch a fish over 50 inches, let alone 2.
Yep.
So I don't know where they're getting their data from, but it's not very accurate. And I feel like that's going to be the downside of it, just like the rock fishery. And they're going to say, oh my God, because that's all they do is they look on social media, they check out everyone's photos, and they do all these guesstimations and scientific stuff. But I think if it's completely up to the individual themselves, and completely on like how much you get out there. But I would recommend releasing, those bigger fish, just the try to, preserve VMRC's like opinions about it, or their thoughts.
Yeah, the stock estimates and
yes, because that's all they're going to go off of. Because that's what I asked her was, where do you get this information? They're not out there doing research or at the fish cleaning stations every day looking to see what gets brought in. They're just going off whatever they see on social media and then just guesstimating it off that.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Like, that's why I always try to say, revive your fish properly with the fish grips, because they look at how you hold them and how you release them. And then they take that into consideration of the dead loss.
Right. The mortality rates. And, something that I've had a conversation with a friend about this too. I mean, of all the fish you can go out and catch, besides like a tuna or other pelagics, which are harder to go get and not as easily accessible, the cobia is probably one of the biggest yielding fish that we have easy access to. And for the average person, one cobia is more than enough, fish, unless you're having, a family reunion and a fish fry. So my thought process is just more along the lines of just ask yourself the question, like, how much do I need, and just regulate your harvesting against that. And, a 45, 46 inch fish, in my opinion, eats as good, if not much better than that 55-inch fish. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to
Well,
keep that in mind is, release them over 50. If you've not gotten your kill citation for the year and you're like really confident it's 55 pounds, yeah, go for it. But otherwise, take every effort you can to be a steward of the resource and just be mindful of what you need versus you're just fired up and want to kill it to take a picture with it.
yeah, and that's where it gets tricky for us guys on charters, because these people are spending tons of money to come down here to catch these fish, and they're perfectly legal to kill theirs, and some these guys come down once a year to do this stuff, and it's gonna be tough to tell them, to let it go, if they really want the meat, because I've got a lot of guys that come down and they'll do like 2 days in a row, and that's like all the cobia that they get for the entire year, and
Hmm.
it lasts them throughout the entire year, and they come back down there, refill their freezers and everything like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say just be very mindful of how you handle this season, because I
Hmm.
feel like this is the season that's going to be the make or break for these fish.
Hmm.
Um, and I hope that it goes well. And I'm not trying to judge you. If you kill two 60-pounders in a day, that's great. I hope you do. If you want to, but it's just, don't do it every day, I guess.
Right,
I
right.
mean, it's a very sticky situation, because you're gonna get flack if you say don't do it, and then I went and did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a
And that's where it runs into the thing. But it's just, like that guy. He came down from Maryland. He comes down every year from Maryland, and he tries to get on those fish, and he'll be back, next year to do the same
right.
thing. And that's it. It's not like he's being able to do it every single day. And we had limited shots, and those were the only fish that we were able to get that day.
Yeah,
Um, that's the whole thing. But like, I'll say it's going to be a very interesting year
yeah.
with that, because I think that it's going to turn into a very, you know, oh crap moment when they see this
The
and
result, the
realize,
potential results.
yeah,
Well,
because I mean, that's what we told her, was like, you wanted us to release the 50s because they were the breeder fish,
hmm
you know, and then now we did that for the last 5 years, and now we've seen a huge incline, increase in bigger fish in the past couple
hmm
of years, and more fish. And then now, like what Zach said, he's like, well, what was the whole point of us doing this for the last 5 years if you're going to take it away again?
right,
Or if you're going to get rid of it and then do that, because then we're essentially backtracking the last 5 years that we did.
right, right.
Because it's not like those fish are 4 years old. It's
And
kind of insane to think about. But it's almost like they're setting us up for failure, is what it feels like.
I can definitely see how it seems that way. And then it's almost like the thought process went to kind of the other end of the spectrum. So instead of protecting larger fish, it's trying to protect that 40 to 43-inch fish that's right on the edge of being able to be fertile and reproduce and giving them another year to live. But I just want to say I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot for a difficult question. We talked about you fishing since 2008. You've got the experience and the time on the water and the time with these fish to speak to it from a place of experience. So I value the insight. I value the opinion. And what I really heard you say is every chance you get to kill one less fish because you don't really need to have it, just kill one less fish. And that collective effort of us as recreational anglers, which according to her is the largest impact, we can hopefully make a difference.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's going to be the main thing. Is like a lot of them. I think a lot of it is mortality, is
yeah,
releases. They get in the boat. That's why I don't know why. I mean, I get it. Like if it's your first time cobia fishing and everything like that, but like why try to go out there and catch a 30-incher or a 35-inch fish, and you're throwing a live bait at it, you're gut hooking it, then you throw it back. They watch all that, and
hmm,
that fish gets in the boat, and those are the ones that freak out and beat the mess out of themselves.
yeah,
And I see it all the time. They don't make it. They just
yeah,
beat themselves senseless in the boat, and then you try to revive them as best you can, and then they just mud dart.
yeah,
And they know that. They've got the research for that. They've got constant people on everybody's social media is looking at it,
hmm,
and I think that's going to be the downside. Is like it's what I try to do with like a lot of my clients that I've got is guys that want to catch a trophy fish and release it, and then I do have a lot of guys that want to just load up on meat. Not saying either or is right, But I'll say the majority of the fish that we try to throw at are going to be at least 48 inches or 50 inches.
Yeah.
It's just like what we try to go for. It's the best fight, no one really, that's why I try to tell all these guys that are new to it. And you got 4 guys on the boat. It's the one guy's turn to catch a fish. You hand the rod down, it's a 30 incher, and then he's happy for a minute. And then he sees you throw it back. And then he's like, what? And you're like, yeah, it's not a keeper, it's a small fish. Then the next guy could catch a 50 incher. You know what I mean? Then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I just burned my turn on a 30. Why did you even throw at it?
Yeah.
And they just try to, I get it. You're trying to, pump numbers and make it look very appealing. But then that's also the downside of the entire fishery is showing that there's fish everywhere. And then a lot of those fish don't make it or, just end up being stung and then they don't eat for your following trip. And, it just makes it harder. You're just making it harder on yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm hearing you almost kind of describe the difference of like looking at it and appreciating it as like a sport, like a true sport where you're like really putting yourself against the odds and trying to like excel at like a tight framework of these are the fish I'm going to throw at, not just take the easy shots at, smaller fish versus just kind of like a hobby where it's like, oh, I'm just going to go out there and just cast as many times as I can at something that's swimming. So I'm really hearing that too as kind of a challenge to kind of adjust, my fishing as well too, to be mindful of the fact that like every fish that I hook that I don't harvest, I run the risk of, adding to the mortality rate. So just to be mindful of how many fish I throw at, what type of fish I throw at, and if I do hook a fish that I'm going to release, to just be mindful of that through the whole process of boating it, handling it, and getting it safely back in the water. And again, all those things, the decisions about harvest, all of that add to hopefully leaving us with a stock and a resource that we can continue to enjoy year after year and not have to face some hard changes in the future.
Yeah. And this will throw you off too. You ready for this? This is what we talk about all the time. Why stay out there and keep catching these things after you caught your limit? You don't go and book a charter boat out of Oregon Inlet and catch your limit of tunas and stay. And just because you caught them in 2 hours, you stay out there all day and catch and release tunas.
That's a
Do you
great
stay out there
point.
after? One of my buddies told me, he's like, do you stay out there all day after you caught your limit of sea bass and catch and release sea bass for the rest of the time?
No, you don't.
Like, no, you caught your limit. In the bay, you can do something else. Not saying like, oh, you could go and change it up for sea bass and go. Depends on the time of year and everything. But like, usually, like any other fisheries like that, if you're in the bay and you're flounder fishing and you catch your limit, you don't
You're
stay
done.
to release
Yeah.
fish. Cobia fishing is literally the only fishery that we do where guys stay out there all day to catch and release fish after they've already caught their limit.
It's
And then it's the same people that go and then complain that they don't eat the next day.
right.
You know what I mean? And that's what we try to say is like, okay, so if you caught 15 fish this day, but then you spread it out through 3 days, you could have 5 fish a day, 6 fish a day consistently the entire time versus having your highs where you got 20, 30 fish days, 10 fish days, and then they drop down to 2 or 3.
Right.
And that's what we try to advocate for is like, keep it consistent. My main goal every time I go out fishing is to catch everybody on board at least a cobia and to get our limit. And then after that, we'll try to switch it over and go into something else. Unless we see like a true big fish, like a citation or something like that, then we'll throw at it.
Right.
And that's kind of, the sport of it. It's the same thing like the red drum on the islands. If you sit out there all day and catch these red drum on the islands where it's only a group of 100 fish and then they don't eat now because you hooked every single one in the school this entire week. Or you could take your trip in there or go in there with your buddies and catch 1 or 2 or 3, and then you can spread those out the entire season. Then everybody gets a shot at it for the rest of the year, and it still becomes a trophy. I feel like if you're out there and you can catch 30 to 40 of the same thing, then it's not really a trophy anymore. You're kind of feeling that aspect that we have. We have a great fishery. We've got some of the biggest cobia around, some of the biggest red drum around. And if you just sit out there all day and do that, it just kind of takes the fun out of it. I get for the clients or, your friends coming in town, make it look easier than what it actually is. It's not going to be like that every day. What I mean? It's like, okay, you have a great day. Every once in a while, it's going to be like that. and then it's like it just peters off to a norm. And I just feel like then it gets everybody's hopes up, for the rest of the time because they see it all on, Facebook. Because it's like, the recreational guys, I'm sure you guys know, you see like these guys post all these things and then you go out there and then you struggle to catch them,
Yeah.
And it's like, what am I doing wrong? Then you get in your head, you get down in the dumps about it. And it's like, no, it's the same fish. And you're just throwing at the same fish.
Yeah, just too much pressure. You make an interesting and valid point that I agree with about adjusting your perspective on how you go after them when you think about like the sea bass, the flounder, the spade fish.
Oh, spade fish,
You don't.
mackerel. Like, are you going to catch and release Spanish mackerel all day?
No,
You're
you're
probably
not.
no, you're
You're
going to
not.
switch it up and go for something else. But that's where it comes into the issue where there's a lot of one trick
It's
ponies.
just overfishing for no real good reason other than
Yeah,
just look, we caught more and we released more. So I take it almost as like
it's an ego thing. It's more of an ego. Who wants to be
yeah.
the king of the bay type thing? And I get it. I get it. Like, yeah, absolutely.
But
Like,
we grow and we mature and we learn and education drives change. And sometimes batteries die during conversations. Captain Robbie, I think, are you back with us now?
Yes, I'm here. My
All
phone
right,
died.
fantastic. Well, I was just listening to what you were saying and thinking about how education drives, changes in behavior. And I think about like cigarettes. Everybody used to smoke cigarettes. It was no big deal. Smoked on planes, smoked everywhere. And then we found out that, it causes lung cancer and can kill you. And so a ton of behavior changed accordingly. So I appreciate and value the education and thinking about it a little bit differently. I've never heard it from that perspective. And so, for me, that's going to drive some behavioral change to where if I'm out there and, I've caught the fish that I want to catch, really going to focus on learning something new, but whether that's, trying for flounder or trying for, red drum or sheep's head, I'm going to try for something different versus just staying out there all day and, throwing at cobia that are not going to be harvested. But yeah, any final thoughts on that? I know we've kind of belabored this point a little bit, but it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah, no, I just want to, not trying to sound like, not to go out there and go fishing for them and not that, not going to bash you if you catch 10 fish, 15 fish, you have a stellar day. Like, not trying to do that, but it's like if you look at it, like we were talking about, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, so say like, Luke, if you're out there and, you've caught 2 fish or something, and then, there's a 40-incher or something, next to you, and you don't throw at it, then the guy down, the channel or something, maybe he's never caught one. Then he's got a shot at that fish now that would, that might eat. That's where I'm kind of getting to it. It would benefit everybody in the grand scheme of things. And if you stop catching so many, then that leaves some for guys that maybe it's their first time out and they get discouraged because they've thrown at so many fish and they don't eat. But maybe it's because those fish have been hooked and then let go. But if we all, it's a fishing community. You know what I mean? At the grand scheme of things, like imagine going to a wreck and trying to fish a wreck where someone just fished and they stayed and caught 300 sea bass and then released every one of them. You go there, you're not going to catch them, but they're there.
Yeah, you're right.
And you're going to get upset by it. And I think that's kind of like where everything changes is because we're hunting these fish and we're seeing them. Like, I get it. Like, if you want to go after a trophy fish and you really want to catch that 50, what I tell everybody, and this is what I try to do in the charges, is you want to catch a big fish, and that's what they want to say. The amount of time that you're spending to go and you throw at a 40-incher, maybe 100 yards down, you could have seen that 60-pounder that you've always wanted, and by the time you get there after you're dealing with that fish, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like how many times you've been working the channel where everyone's at, and you throw at a fish because it's the first fish you see, and you just catch it, and then all of a sudden, the guy goes past you and then he hooks up to a big fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah.
Why did we even do that? You know what I mean? That's why I'm saying it would benefit everybody. It would be a way more fun fishery if everyone else got involved with it like that.
Yeah.
Then everybody would be happy. And there'd be a ton of fish for everybody. And, you wouldn't see that problem that we're seeing now with fish not eating. I've never seen that. Unless they're spawning. That's the only times we would ever see that. And the only thing that's changed is just there's more people doing it.
Yeah.
Just because it's popular. It's a great fish to catch. It's very fun. But that's all it is fish don't eat that have already been hooked.
Yeah. Well, it's a simple ask that I'm hearing you say, and And I agree with it. It's just like, hey, it's tons of fun, but if you've had your fun, just think of the next guy and move on to something else. And I think that little bit of adjustment in behavior along with adjustment in harvest makes it, like you said, it's more of a community and we're all working together so that everybody can go out and have fun and enjoy it. For those of us who don't have a
Yeah.
boat and want to experience this, want to get on board, your 31 privateer with that big old tower and fish with you. What's the best way they can contact Real Release and get booked for a charter?
You can message me on my socials, Facebook or Instagram, Real Release Sport Fishing, or give me a shout through an email on my website, or text message or a phone call.
Awesome. Well, we'll drop all that in the show notes for folks that are listening. Um, I know this was a little bit longer report, but man, I really appreciate you kind of spending the time with us and having the tough conversation, talking to us about the wreck fishing and the flounder. I learned a lot. I hope our listeners did too. Thanks for hopping on the show, man, and spending some time with us.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. I'd just love to see everybody get out there and, enjoy everything that we've got. The bay's an amazing place to fish, either sheep's head, spade fish. There's tons of things to fish for. And I've just, if we already got a lot of heat on us for the Cobia this year, and I feel like this is the breaking point. So maybe if we just kind of try to do, change it up and not focus on one thing 90% of the time and try to disperse our time. It's not like there's not other things to go for. I mean, the flounder fishing was phenomenal. We had, I think every trip that we've had, we've caught at least 20. And then like the other day we had an 8-man limit, and then we probably had 50 or 60 flounders.
Wow.
I mean, there's tons of fishing right now.
That's awesome. That's exciting to hear. Well, summer's just kicking off. We've got lots of reports ahead of us, so we look forward to having you back on soon and hearing what you guys are up to. Again, thanks for hopping on and spending the time with us.
All right. Yeah, not a problem.
Awesome. Well, folks, that's going to wrap up an informational, educational, and exciting report with Captain Robbie hearing about those jumbo cobias that he caught on the opening day, along with the exciting action happening on the inshore wrecks. Lots of fishing to do. Hit him up on the socials, follow him, book him for a trip. You'll definitely get on something when you're on Real Release. Folks, stick around for a quick word from our sponsors that keep this great information free for you each and every week, and we'll be back with you real soon. Looking to protect your dock with materials built to last? Shoreline Plastics has you covered. As leaders in composite marine dock pilings and building materials, they engineer solutions that stand the test of time. Their EcoPile is the ultimate composite piling designed for longevity and eco-friendliness, ensuring your dock remains strong for years. And if you need a quick fix for worn pilings, try Snapjacket, a durable solution that restores and extends their life. Visit shorelineplastics.com to discover how you can elevate your next marine project. Shoreline Plastics, where durability meets innovation. Sam Rust Seafood, your locally trusted source for premium wholesale seafood. Servicing customers from Hampton Roads down through the Outer Banks, Richmond, and surrounding areas, including Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg, for over 80 years. Committed to the highest standards in the industry, Sam Rust distributes the best of the ocean directly to your restaurant, hotel, or grocery store on time and at a great price. Visit samrust.com to discover how quality, tradition, and sustainability come together. So don't cuss, call Sam Rust. All right, guys, for this segment, I want to welcome back to the show someone we talked to last year around the same time, Captain Nate Myers with the Fallen Outdoors event that's going to be coming up soon. Want to talk to him, learn a little bit about the event, what we can expect, how we can get involved. So, Captain Nate, welcome back to the show, man. How we doing?
Hey, doing great, Luke. And again, I appreciate you having me back on. It's always a pleasure. I listen to this podcast religiously, so it's always great to be a part of this one.
Man, I appreciate that very much. Let me do a little quick questionnaire for you. So you say you listen to it religiously. Certainly not trying to play favorites by any means, but if you could think of like one or two segments recently where you've learned something that you didn't know before from one of the captains, if off the top of the dome here, what would you say something you've picked up on lately?
Well, I tell you, I think one of the ones that stood out to me is I think it was Quentin, right? What the tuna
Stefan.
fishing trip?
Stefan.
Stefan,
Yeah.
yes, Stefan. So he with the 5-gallon buckets.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant idea. I think that was an awesome podcast. I really got into that one. No, I mean, I think there's always a little bit, especially if you're out there in the water, you spend some time. There's a lot there. Bill Pappas, again, probably one of the best ones you have on here. Just he's just electricity when he's on here,
That's a
and
great
always
word
leaving
for it.
little tidbits.
Yep.
So I love listening to him. There's always some really good things, and he's always willing to teach if people are willing to listen.
Yeah.
But I mean, you always have some amazing people on here. Travis Kemp and Austin, and can go on and on with all the captains. So I think really, I mean, it's really hard to pinpoint one thing or another.
Mhm.
But I do know there's just as long as you're out there on the water, you can pick up a lot, just little things
Yeah.
from what these captains say, whether it's paying attention to the current or looking at. I know you brought up the real time navigator,
Yeah.
salinities and water temperatures and things of that nature, which for starting, you don't really pay attention to that too much. But then when you're really trying to figure out what's separating the good captains from the mediocre, just a regular captain, those are some of the things. It's like they're so dialed in on
Yeah.
salinity levels and temperatures and all these things that, and they're all things you guys talk about on these podcasts. So it's definitely great to listen to that.
That's great feedback, man. I think you're right. It's their ability to combine, skill and experience with the data, and then they've got enough skill and experience to look at the data and be able to interpret it and then apply it to what they do on their trip. I would say two things that I've picked up on that have been most influential in my fishing have been, again, shout out Bill Pappas talking about sea bass fishing. Like, get to a wreck and don't just be like, oh, I got to the wreck. Take some time. Like, you drove the 20 something miles out there, go ride around and look and just see if maybe on one side or the other there's a cloud of fish that's hanging out, not necessarily just fish right on top of the wreck. And then two, I think I've heard it from several captains. I know Captain Colt North, Captain Jack Limroth. I think I picked it up from Jack originally, but stepping my main line way, way down so that I can get more cast, more
Yep.
range. I think he uses 40 pound, and I used to use 65 pound braid, which is obviously complete overkill. Like, you think about the fact that your drag system can't even put close to that amount of pressure on a fish.
Yep.
If it's bridge season and you're fishing up against the bridge, sure, maybe because you're just flicking a cast in there. You don't really have to send it, 30, 40 yards out there. But those two in particular have changed the way that I fish and produced much better results. So that's been cool. But enough about the past. We've got some fishing to do coming up, and you do something cool for the community, specifically for our friends who've served our country. Tell us about the Fallen Outdoors. Tell us about this event coming up. What can we expect this year? When is it? Give me all the details.
Yeah. So yeah, the Fallen Outdoors. It's a nonprofit organization geared to getting or active duty servicemen and women, and veterans outdoors. They put on multiple events each year, whether fishing, hunting, just getting outdoors. I've teamed up with Ken Lilly, which is a pro staff member for the Fallen Outdoors Virginia,
Okay.
and basically we this kind of stemmed from about 2 or 3 years ago. We were talking about this. I was trying to get a couple, himself and a couple other members out, and we are like, let's just see if we can put on an event, and try to see if we can get some local captains that'd be willing to participate and just take out some members. So
Yeah.
last year we did that. It was at the end of August, and it was pretty successful. I think we had 14 or 15 boats registered. I think we took out a total of 32 or 31 or 32 members.
Wow.
Had a great day. It was a beautiful day out on water. Fishing was a little slow at the end of August. The reason why this year we did move it up to July 12th. So really excited about that because I think it is going to open up some opportunities for some different species. Because I
Hmm.
just didn't want this to be like a normal Cobia tournament. It is a multiple species, really anything anyone wants to fish for. It could be anything from croaker to if you want to chase cobia or sheep's head or spadefish, whatever it is. But yeah, so our mission really is just to have a day, stress free day, getting our active duty and veterans, um, men and women outdoors, and just spend a day on the water, making connections. I know last year we had several people do return trips with the captains,
Oh, that's
so which
awesome.
was really cool. They made some connections, and it was like a couple of days later, weather was pretty, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, we're back here fishing with the captains again." So it was really cool to kind of see that, and hear that those connections were being made.
That's awesome, man. And looking at the flyer that you've got for this event, it's going to be the Catch 22 Rod and Reel Day on the Water, benefiting the Fallen Outdoors, July the 12th. Boat registration's free. You've got a bunch of really great sponsors, names that I recognize here. You got Tony over at Wallace's Bait and Tackle.
Yep, absolutely.
Wallace's is such a cool place. If you've never been there or had the chance to go experience it, I mean, it's a cool little hidden gem there in Hampton. You kind of got to go wind back through, but as all good things, you kind of be a little patient. But then once that road opens up and you see that marina and that huge parking lot, and then Tony's family and everybody that works there is so kind and gracious. They've always
Yep.
got good food. Fuel right there on the dock. I mean, you really can't beat that setup up there in Hampton. I see Richard Wasden with Real Blessed, Chong's Jigs, Savvy Maddox, you guys, your company. So, do you already have all the boats and all the captains that you need for this year, or do you need more?
Registration will be open till July 1st. So right now, I think we have 13 boats that are registered. Definitely looking. I think our goal this year was to try to get anywhere between 15 and 20. Um,
Okay.
but so yeah, so there's definitely there's been some multiple people and multiple captains that have been interested in. I know some people are kind of last minute, no different than any other tournament that's out there, right? The day of registration, everyone's registering because they whether the weather's nice or they have the weekend freed up. So
Right.
but we'll definitely be open for some last minute registration. We're trying to get just a base idea on how many TFO members we'll need.
Got
And
it.
then we'll also keep some on standby. I do know last year, I think we had one or two boats that registered like the day before.
Okay.
And so if it does come up to that, that's fine. We can definitely accommodate. We'll just shift some people around. Because the goal is we're trying not to take any more than two TFO members on a boat, just to really give everybody opportunities to fish more,
To
right?
catch
Because we
fish.
don't
Right.
exactly. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's more about having a good day versus just stacking,
People on the
members on a
boats.
boat just to say we did something, right? It's really trying to capture those memories.
Absolutely. And I'd be amiss if I did not mention some names that I see and recognize. Captain Mike Hosang with Fishing for Mortgages, your local fisherman who also can do your mortgage. And then, of course, our dear friend Jenny with Shutter Speed. She's always out there on the bay making magic with her camera lens. So really excited to hear that she's involved because she just has a way of capturing the moments that
Yep.
I've got several of her pictures printed and framed. And I'll tell you what, man, when I walk by and see those pictures, it just immediately takes you right back into that moment. And you're like, dude, this is awesome. So excited to see that she's going to be out there. There's a QR code. Folks can email catch22rodandreel@gmail.com. If I'm a captain that gets involved, what's the framework of the tournament? You mentioned there's multiple species to go afterwards, and I'm just asking the obvious questions here. Like, is
Yeah.
this a cash tournament? Is it like, how does this tournament work? What do you quote unquote win if you catch what? The most species, the biggest cobia? Like, how does that part work?
This was something we were trying to figure out how to really do this last year. So we ended up making this more of a benefit event instead of a
Hmm.
tournament, just to try to
Perfect.
take some of that pressure off and the
Off.
stress from the captains. Um, so really, at the end of the day, there's it's one of those things where there is no cash prize. Really, no one wins.
But
From
everybody
that,
wins.
but everybody wins, right? So we
Right.
have basically the sponsors and myself and some of the others have come together. Richard from Real Bless, again, he's going to build us some custom rods. I'll be building some custom rods. A lot of the other sponsors, we're basically buying a bunch of awesome raffles. So I know
Awesome.
last year we raffled stuff off for a good little while. That's really where it's at is trying to take away some of that stress of a tournament, and any of the cash prize out of it, to where basically at the end of the day we come back, we clean the fish. We're gonna have food there. We still haven't quite decided what we're gonna do with the food. Last year we did like pulled pork and barbecue and sandwiches and stuff. This year we have a couple of different options, so we're weighing through that. But basically, we'll have food there provided for everybody, drinks, and then we're going to get into doing our raffles. So I know last year, like I said, we had custom rods, we had brand new reels, tall tails, bait and tackle from up in Ohio. was able to get us a handful of reels. Actually, some of them
Nice.
were made up perfect combos for the rods that were being presented last year, and then coolers, fillet knives. I mean,
Oh, wow.
we pretty and then also too we also stacked the captain's buckets. So the captain's buckets are a little bit more than what you typically get from your typical Cobia tournaments.
Right.
Last year we really invested in the captain's buckets. The goal is we're giving the TFO members a day out on the water, but I'm also taking that time. I want to get back to the captains that are participating for this,
Right.
because they are taking out their time. And some of these are captains that are running charters, and they're choosing not to run a charter that day and take out the TFO members. So I think it's definitely something there. I definitely want to acknowledge them and make sure that they also get something in return too. So a lot of it's just giving back to everybody. So like, as you mentioned, Luke, at the end of the day, everybody wins.
Yeah, and I mean, back to like giving honor where honor's due, our brothers and sisters who have gone before us and who are currently serving for us, it's hard to put into words what that level of sacrifice really means and what it really is like unless you are a family member of a veteran or active duty. You really don't have an understanding. And I'm speaking from my own lack of experience. Like I don't have a family member. I work every day with retired, Navy folks, and hearing some of their stories and what they spent their life doing and the dangers that they, narrowly missed and whatnot. It really just drives home how incredible their sacrifice is. And so if we have an opportunity to take a day and do something like this where it's like we wouldn't even have the opportunity to go fishing safely, much less have the, economic things afforded to us if it wasn't for everybody that went before us. So I love what you're
Yeah.
doing. I love everything about this event. I think our listeners obviously are going to love it too because we all stand for the same thing, which is, enjoying our resource, sustainable practices, and being an honorable part of the community. And this is a cool way to give back. So if anybody's listening and wants to get involved and either provide more, sponsorship gifts, or get involved as a sponsor, or potentially get involved as a captain, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you to find out more information and get involved?
Yeah, so on the flyer that's been passed around on social media, there's a QR code. Scan that QR code; it'll take you right to the registration form. If you have any additional questions, my email is on the flyer as well, and then my phone number 304-698-9442. Feel free to call me, text me. I've had a bunch of people reach out, asking questions, or if you want to, you can message me on whether it's LinkedIn, private message, or Facebook. I'm always available on any of those platforms too. If you want to message me on one of those and just ask some more questions. So yeah, like I said, it's definitely a great event. Even if you can't participate, but you want to stop down later in the afternoon just to kind of see what it's all about, please feel free. We'll definitely have plenty of food there. Just kind of see what it's about. Maybe meet a new friend or something. There's just like any other time you get a bunch of fishing guys together. There's everyone's sitting around the dock telling stories for hours, so it's always a good time.
Oh yeah, always. And Wallace is such a great congregational place too, with that big wraparound porch and shade, and Tony's always got music playing, and
Yeah,
the kids running around, and the food's good. I mean, it's just a good time. And hopefully, like you're saying, being here in July 12th, which is only what, 2, 3, 4-ish weeks away,
yeah,
roughly. Um, there ought to be a good mixed bag of fishing available. The flounder are moving in, the sheep's head are out there, the cobia, some red drum. I don't know how long those bonito mackerel are going to last, but that's fun too, or just trolling for Spanish mackerel. So
yeah,
anybody that
yeah,
gets involved is going to be able to, have fun and hopefully have some awesome weather that day for you too. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited for you. Looking forward to hearing more about it as we get closer. And then, of course, what we'll have to do is we'll do a debrief after the tournament and just hear how it went, hear some cool fish stories, and just check in with you to learn a little bit more about how the folks enjoyed this event. So, thanks so much for being on the show, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, Luke, I can't tell you thank you enough for the opportunity to come on here. Again, it's always a pleasure to sit down and talk with you. And yeah, I'm hoping this weather straightens out for us. I know it's been pretty brutal so far this spring and getting into
Yes.
summer months here, but yeah, I'm hoping we get some good weather windows. We'll actually get some decent cobia fishing coming up. It looks like the extended forecast looking
Right
pretty
now,
decent. So fingers crossed,
knock
we're
on
gonna get some
wood.
gonna get some time on the water here pretty soon.
I don't look at the weather anymore. I just wake up and look at Instagram stories. I look at Austin Hain or Alex Field. I just look at whatever they're posting on their story, and it's gonna be something like I hate the Virginia Beach weatherman, or they're wrong again, or it's just gonna be a panoramic view of dark clouds and storms. I think this morning it was Alex Field was following Fineo to the dock, and it was like raining. It was like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And then fast forward 6 hours, the sun comes out, and they're catching jumbo cobias, or at least like we were talking about offline. Travis Kemp, Captain Travis with Foolproof Sport Fishing, he's always posting. It's either, XL, XXL, or XXXL
Yep.
qualification. So I don't know what, we need to ask him, like what qualifies as an XL, because he's obviously doing it when he's just looking at it in the water.
And the thing is, he's pretty accurate too. And I know today was an XL, so I'm gonna guess it was 54
Inches or pounds?
54 inches. It's hard to, until I can really see it there, right? I'm pretty sure. I mean, probably a good, what, I don't know. It might be close to 50-pound fish. We'll see. We'll see what Travis says.
Yeah, 54 inches. I won a tournament in 2019 with a 54-inch fish that weighed in at 48.5 pounds. What'd be fun to do is get Captain Travis to start calling his shots, but actually quantify from a measurement perspective what an XL, an XXL, and an XXXL is. So
Yep.
let's just say XL is like 50 to 55 inches, and then an XXL is 55 to 60 inches, and then anything 60 inches above is a triple XL. Get him to start calling his shots with his story, and then get into the boat and measurement and see how accurate he really is.
Yeah, I know he's pretty accurate. I will say that I've fished with him a handful of times, and he's usually within an inch or two away. So, but yeah, I need to understand what does the X represent in
Right.
his equation
big-
he's using.
How big is it really? It's funny. All these years of cobia fishing, you get so used to looking at them and trying to determine if it's like a 50-incher or a 40-incher, because of the previous year's regulations.
Yep.
Obviously, this year is different, 43 minimum. But this winter when we were bluefin tuna fishing, we were hooked up to one, and it was like 15 feet down, but it was in clear water. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, I said, I'll bet that's probably somewhere between, 61 and 64 inches. And sure enough, we got it in and measured. It was like 63 inches or whatever it was.
Nice.
I think it was
Awesome.
63 inches, 135 pounds or something like that. That math may or may not check out, so don't quote me on it. But the eyeballs were pretty accurate from looking at cobia so much. Anyways, I wish you a great season ahead of cobia fishing. I always love seeing you out on the water. You make quite the drive. Remind folks that are listening how far you drive to come cobia fish the Lower Chesapeake Bay.
And I come down there a good bit. So I'm up around the Northern Virginia. I'm actually located just on the across the state line in West Virginia. So my commute is 3.5 hours. So I on a typical day, if I go down when the weather's nice, especially in the prime of everything, I'll usually get up at 4:30, leave here at 5, be at the dock by 8:30, and on the water by 9. So that's so yeah, it's not the greatest. Definitely looking to maybe get down there a little more local here pretty soon, but until some things with my day job get sorted out and settled down, then I'll have to make that drive for now, but it's worth it. It's one of those things. I think once you get down there, again, like you said, just Tony and Tam, I know them very well and they take care of me. So, and Dandy Haven, Andy there always has my boat in the water whenever I need it. So basically, everything's ready to go.
Yeah.
So it makes for quick work. Get on the water as quick as you can whenever you get down there, because usually by 9 o'clock, somebody's already posting up that they already have XL1 in
their
the
limit
or something.
Yeah, XL1.
And it's like, oh man, I got to get out there.
That's funny. Well, just Tony, if you're listening, we need you to just go ahead and put a cot in the back room for Nate when he needs to come up and spend the night, so we can get going early, especially on those tournament days. But again, just want to emphasize, your drive time, your time to administer and put this event together, who it benefits. There's a lot of really admirable stuff going on here, guys. So please get involved if you can. And help Nate and the Fallen Outdoors out with making this an awesome event. Again, Captain Nate, thank you so much for hopping on and chatting with us, man.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate the time, buddy.
Absolutely. Folks, that's going to wrap up that really cool segment. Learn a little bit more about Catch 22 Rod and Reel and the Fallen Outdoors coming up this July the 12th, 2025, one-day event to benefit those men and women who serve. Y'all stick around for a word from our sponsors that make this content free for you each week, and we'll be back soon. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. What you need are the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that captains all up and down the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. Hooked on fishing? Then you're part of the local community that Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle cares about serving and giving back to, providing you with the right selection for each season's target species. They're your one-stop shop to gear up with the best bait, tackle, and insider tips to catch your next trophy fish. You can fuel up right out front on the water and then chat with the crew inside for hot tips on where they're biting. So swing by today. Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle, where your fishing adventures start and finish with your trophy catch on their scales. All right, y'all, that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaner Cloth, text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep on whacking them and be safe out there.